Friends, fellow Fistians, Razor Americans, I've been informed recently that while my videos are in fact informative and verbose, even when extemporaneous, as these rants often are, that the only thing wrong with them is the naughty words. So for the purposes of today's rant, I shall endeavor, in an effort to reach as many mothers and fathers as humanly possible, to excise any and all obscenity from the fun times we're about to have. In case you ain't heard, Apocalypse Virginia is upon us, as we were all informed ahead of the Richmond demonstration to protest the incoming gun control goals of the Democratic Party, and while a Mad Maxian hellscape of wasteland murder Nazis and schoolyard shootouts was predicted by many in media, not to mention the Prince fan Ralph Northam, the actual event was completely peaceful, folks, with just one arrest on the day due to some lady wearing a hanky on her face, refusing to take it off, and not being Muslim, evidently. With the New York Times reporting around 22,000 attendees, a figure that eyeballing it from the available footage and aerial shots seems to be underselling it a fair bit, but whatever, largely comprised of open-carrying lawful gun owners of any and all persuasions exercising their rights in a show of defiance to democratic overreach. Why, even the man-child of the hour weighed in with a piping hot bowl of Brussels sprouts, courtesy of the Virginia Governor Twitter account. Quote, "We are all thankful that today passed without incident. The team successfully de-escalated what could have been a volatile situation." Well, guys, I guess we can all relax. The cat who does Little Abner cosplay in his spare time is monitoring the volatile situation that he engineered. But my favorite bit is when he caps off the chicanery with a hearty, "I will continue to listen to the voices of Virginians." Northam, the man elected by a glorified suburb of Washington, D.C., says he's got a heart monitor strapped to the sack of the average Virginian. Yeah? Well, here's your EKG. Sounds like they've spoken, you shifty-looking fella. Listen to the voices of Virginians, folks. Why start now? Republicans, independents, and yes, people in your own party warn against getting ahead of yourself, pushing unconstitutional curtailment of the Second Amendment. And what do 5 seconds after getting the governor's mansion keys? Where you're all but unelected and popular as penis cancer, you move like grease lightning, pushing and signing several Bill of Rights obliterating laws, many of which the public is all but unaware of. But oh, we'll get to them in a white-hot minute. And are we just going to skate past the fact that this slack-jawed Jim Crow reviving jackanapes declared a state of emergency under what we now know to be flagrantly false pretenses, effectively tripling the risk of urban violence thereby, one that thankfully failed to materialize? Don't lie, you leering shyster. You can cry about the pursuit of peace all you like. We all know you were hosting voodoo death rituals in the governor's mansion, imploring all gods above and below to kick off a cannonade of civilian gunfire so you could name the resultant gun control bill after the first victim. If Trump having an avuncular cellular phone call is an impeachable offense, what in nebulous nut hammocks would that be exactly? And if he's arguing it was actually an emergency, then wait. The Occupy Charlottesville event, which famously ended in multiple arrests and allegations of property damage and trespassing, despite boasting a fraction of this event's attendance figures, can illegally enter government buildings during working hours with impunity. All's copacetic, but a bunch of men and women of all ethnicities and backgrounds packed the streets and sidewalks of Virginia in an open and very constitutional display of kinship and, yes, force, and suddenly sending in the National Guard is on the table over imagined threats of Nazism and white supremacy, an allegation that fails to withstand a single viewing of a photo from the rally, by the by, showing everything from Latinos to Asians and otherwise marching in defense of their firearms rights. The Black Panthers showed, for friendship's sake. And I don't know about you, but I don't recall the Nazis ever running on a platform of permissive gun rights. Apparently I was out of school with the sniffles that week in history, which brings me to the path forward. All right, you dressed up, armed up, and treated a few fascists to the finger. Now what? The left march their legs off their bodies every time Soros suffers a hangnail. Ain't no never mind to the rest of human civilization, and it changes precisely decument amounts of nothing. That was a close one. Make no mistake, this was an emphatic statement. In one afternoon, the patriots of Virginia all but abrogated the asinine assertion that the right are incapable of well-organized, sufficiently funded public protests in defense of our freedom. It's an emboldening, deeply encouraging development. But sadly, that's also all it is without adequate expeditious follow-up. Fortunately, it also presents achievable possibilities merely by happening without a hitch. Despite a deliberately convoluted 9-step process to remove a governor from office in the inversion of electoral oversight that is Virginia in 2020, if all of the estimated 22,000 in attendance voted by way of petition, along with the additional 100,000 who planned to attend but elected not to after the obvious scare tactics of Northam's imaginary emergency declaration, you'd be halfway to the necessary signatures to send this simp back to the blackface dance recital circuit, as the state of Virginia requires a mind-boggling 450,000 signatories to even begin the recall process, or roughly 1/8 the population of the state in question. But one look at that map, and it's clear just a couple counties could account for that total in an evening. I'll even link you to one of the more prominent recall petitions, as I'm well aware there are many Virginian recruits to the Razor Force. Point being, this cannot be some schismatic one-off like every other angsty, ineffectual effort from the left in the last 10 to 20 years. The right haven't been classically inclined toward dramatic marches, catchy chants, or protest movements. What we have had is follow-through, and you're gonna need it, because SB 16 is a bona fide cakewalk next to some of the other steaming piles of sharing and caring coming down the pike from the preemies in Richmond. As I said in my previous Virginia video, it's all an elaborate game of watch the birdie, because while we're all justifiably upset at the overt attempt to roll back the freedoms enshrined in the Bill of Rights, they're creeping around back and parking their private parts in our doggy doors. Take an SJ 16, for example, an attempt to increase each gubernatorial term limit from 4 years to 8. How'd you like to stare at that walking sentient chin deficit for 16 years instead of 8? Or SB 65, which removes the voter photo ID requirement for voting, or even more pernicious attempts to achieve permanent motto parties, like SB 399, which awards all electoral votes to the winner of the national presidential popular vote, and SJ 29, which similarly allows the governor to be elected by majority vote in the districts rather than by a statewide majority. And last but not least, SJs 14 and 8, which restore voting rights to felons, the mentally handicapped, and Anthony Weiner. But I repeat myself. So as great as this was, and as excellent as it is to get multiple generations of Midwest and coastal patriots engaged in the assault on our freedoms, my message is simple. Saddle up, mobilize, channel that fresh rush of newly minted American energy, follow through, and shock the Shell gas station out of them. I'm Razor Fist. God speed. Fuck tits, bitch, midge, dick, whore, cunt, shit, ass, hell, damn, twat, shaft, slash, balls! God bless America.